Wherever you travel, manners are a must, and every culture has its own definition of politeness. In this respect, Brazil is no different. So in our first lesson, we'll be taking a look at a phrase you have no excuse not to know. I'm talking about how to say thank you. As you can imagine, knowing this tidbit of language can go a long way. The phrase we'll learn today is obrigado. In Portuguese, obrigado means thank you. Let's hear that a little slower. Obrigado. Let's break it down by syllable. O-bri-ga-do. Now let's hear it once again. Obrigado. The word obrigado literally means obligated, or more specifically, to be obligated towards someone or something. Let's hear it one more time. Obrigado. And broken down. O-bri-ga-do. And full speed. Obrigado. Now in Portuguese there are several ways to express one's gratitude. There are more formal and more casual ways to do this. One more formal way of expressing gratitude is muito obrigado, which means thank you very much. Let's hear that one time slow. Muito obrigado. Let's break it down by syllable. Muito obrigado. Now let's hear it again. Muito obrigado. The first word, muito, can mean several things in English. Much, many, very, etc. But in this case, it means very.
Lesson 1.
Wherever you travel, manners are a must, and every culture has its own definition of politeness. In this respect, Brazil is no different. So in our first lesson, we'll be taking a look at a phrase you have no excuse not to know. I'm talking about how to say thank you. As you can imagine, knowing this tidbit of language can go a long way. The phrase we'll learn today is obrigado. In Portuguese, obrigado means thank you. Let's hear that a little slower. Obrigado. Let's break it down by syllable. O-bri-ga-do. Now let's hear it once again. Obrigado. The word obrigado literally means obligated, or more specifically, to be obligated towards someone or something. Let's hear it one more time. Obrigado. And broken down. O-bri-ga-do. And full speed. Obrigado. Now in Portuguese there are several ways to express one's gratitude. There are more formal and more casual ways to do this. One more formal way of expressing gratitude is muito obrigado, which means thank you very much. Let's hear that one time slow. Muito obrigado. Let's break it down by syllable. Muito obrigado. Now let's hear it again. Muito obrigado. The first word, muito, can mean several things in English. Much, many, very, etc. But in this case, it means very. So let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Muito. Muito. This is followed by obrigado, which in Portuguese you'll remember is thank you. So muito and obrigado means thank you very much. Muito obrigado. When I first arrived in Brazil, a friend and I went to a Senhora Noemia's house. I'd only been in Brazil for about 3 weeks, give or take, but I had already fallen in love with acerola juice. It's a kind of sour cherry. It's really fantastic. So we went there, and Brazilians have this custom of always offering food to their guests. Whoever comes in, here you go, have food, have drink, whatever, there you go. And her house was no exception. It being a hot day, Miss Noemia went to the kitchen, brought out a nice cold glass of acerola juice. Fantastic stuff. She offered it to me, and I dutifully said, obrigado. She promptly turned away and put the juice back in the fridge. Let me explain why she did that. In Brazil, when someone offers you something and you say, obrigado, it's a polite way of actually refusing what's been offered to you. It's kind of like saying, thank you for the offer, but I don't really want whatever you're giving me. After that, I went and explained myself to Noemia because my friend was laughing too hard, who also chuckled and gave me back the juice. As I said before, a little bit of language goes a long way, especially on a very hot day. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Thank you. Obrigado. 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 Thank you very much. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado.
Listen 2.
In today's lesson, we'll continue on with basic etiquette. The Brazilians are a kind, friendly, and hospitable people, and expressions of gratitude are frequent and often lavishly applied. In Brazil, thank you and you're welcome are phrases you will hear and should say each and every day. In Portuguese, you're welcome is de nada. Let's break it down by syllable. De, na, da. The first word, de, means of or from, and is one of the most frequently used words in Portuguese. Let's hear it one more time. G. And yes, the pronunciation is exactly like the English letter G. This is followed by nada, which in English means nothing. Na, da, nada. So to recap here, we have two words, G and nada, which you say together as de nada. Another way of saying you're welcome is não há de quê. Não há de quê. The first word, não, means no. 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 This is followed by a, which means exist. A. Next we have G, which we have already talked about. Next we have G, which we've already talked about. G. And then que, which basically means that. Using this phrase will absolutely delight your listener because it sounds much more considerate. Literally, the phrase translates to no existence of that, which makes virtually no sense in English, but a little bit clearer is there is no reason for that. The that being the obligation you just gave when you said obrigado. But the feeling behind the phrase is very kind, something to the effect of don't worry about it. So to recap here, we have de nada, which basically means you're welcome, and não há de quê, which also means you're welcome, but in a kinder, more educated way. They are both right, but you'll hear de nada much more often. Now, I'd been living in Brazil for nearly 2 years, and I was at a friend's house in a little city called Gurupi, in the state of Tocantins. It's in the northern part of Brazil. This friend, Raimunda, knew that I loved açaí, and she had purchased for me a kilo of pure açaí fruit. Most of you are probably familiar with it, so I won't really explain it, but it really is a fantastic fruit. I was very grateful to her, and I told her, muito obrigado. And she responded with, não há de quê, which I had not heard before, and de nada was what I was expecting, so I had no idea what she had just said. I could tell it was a good thing, because she said it so kindly, but the meaning completely escaped me. This led to a wonderful conversation where she taught me what I just taught you. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
You're welcome. De nada. De nada. De nada. You're welcome. Não há de quê. Não há de quê. Não há de quê.
Listen 3.
With today's phrase, we'll help you take matters into your own hands. Today we'll take a look at please, as in asking for something. The phrase we'll learn today is por favor. In Portuguese, por favor means please. Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor. Now let's hear it once again. Por favor. The phrase por favor literally means as a favor, but is used just like please. Let's hear it one more time. Por favor. And broken down. Por favor. And full speed. Por favor. Brazilians are extremely good guessers. And the most rudimentary way of using por favor is simply pointing at something while saying por favor. But how about we spice this up just a little bit? Let's start with this please, which in Portuguese is isto por favor. In English, this comes before please, and it's the same in Portuguese. So this in Portuguese is isto. 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 So the full phrase is isto por favor. Isto por favor. Isto por favor. Looking at the word for this warrants a look at the word for that, which is isso. So the phrase isso por favor, or that please, is almost identical to the phrase isto por favor, which is this please. Let's break it down by syllable. Isso por favor. Now let's hear them once again, one right after the other. Isto por favor means this please. Isso por favor means that please. Get it? So normally right now I would do a little bit of a culture note, but there's something I need to explain first. I didn't want to have to do this. I didn't want to have to use the G word, but I'm afraid a little bit of grammar is what we're going to have to learn today. So here we go. These phrases we just learned are gender neutral. Gender, as it refers to Portuguese, denotes a particular type of grammatical agreement between the nouns, adjectives, articles, and prepositions. If that made any sense to you, nice, I'm impressed. But for those of you that it didn't make any sense, let me give you a couple examples. First, in English, you don't say she is an actor because you sound like an idiot. You say she is an actress. Likewise, you don't say he is a stewardess because stewardess denotes femininity, and he is not a woman. Making sense? This is gender agreement, and in Portuguese, it is much, much more extensive than in English. Because of these gender variations, there are 5 ways to say this, and 10 ways to say that. But don't worry, you don't need to know all 15 ways. Just learn these phrases and everything will go great. The reason I explain this is that even though isto and isso are just fine for you to use, the Brazilians probably won't because they're natives and they understand the complex agreement patterns. And as we go through these lessons, and during your trip, you'll see several different ways to say this and that. Don't worry, don't get stressed out. It's all just this or that. Learn the phrases the way they're written in these lessons and you will do great. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Please. Por favor. Por favor. Por favor. This, please. Isto, por favor. Isto, por favor. Isto, por favor. That, please. Isso, por favor. Isso, por favor. Isso, por favor.
Lesson 4.
Today we'll cover basic greetings for the appropriate time of day. As there are quite a few to cover, let's just jump right in. There is one expression that can be used as a universal greeting. That phrase is tudo bem? Let's break it down by syllable. Tu, bem. Now let's hear it again full speed. Tudo bem? The first word, tudo, means everything. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Tu, and tudo. This is followed by bem, which in Portuguese is well. So the whole phrase is everything well? Tudo bem? Tu, bem? And tudo bem? The nice thing about this greeting is that the correct response is tudo bem. It's a question and answer thing. Tudo bem? Tudo bem. Next we have good morning, which in Portuguese is bom dia. Let's break it down by syllable. Bom dia. Now here it is once again. Bom dia. The first word, bom, means good. One time slowly. Bom. This is followed by dia, which in Portuguese means day. Dia. So bom and dia become bom dia, and that means good morning. In Portuguese, good afternoon is boa tarde. Boa tarde. Let's break it down by syllable. Boa tarde. And one time fast. Boa tarde. The first word boa means good, just like the word bom means good for bom dia. This is that gender agreement I spoke of in our lesson on please. Bom and boa are actually the same word, just one is the masculine form and the other is the feminine form. Let's break this word down and hear it one more time. Boa. Boa. This is followed by tarde. 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 Which in Portuguese means afternoon. So, boa tarde means good afternoon. And finally we have the evening greeting, which in Portuguese is boa noite. Let's break it down by syllable. Boa noite. And one time fast. Boa noite. The first word, boa, is the same boa from boa tarde, which, not surprisingly, still means good, and is followed by noite, which in English means night. So we've got boa, 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 and noite, no-i-chi, noite, and altogether, boa noite. Luckily, Brazil doesn't have special greetings for the workplace or other more formal situations. It's common to greet your colleagues, superiors, clients, and whoever with the standard tudo bem, bom dia, boa tarde, or boa noite, as you see fit. Degrees of respect are mostly shown in the same ways as English: tone of voice, word choice, clarity of pronunciation, and the occasional title thrown in. And remember, Brazilians are extremely expressive vocally, and being honest and positive about your emotions is important in their culture. Another greeting that doesn't really fall into any category but is extremely common for Brazilians to use is como vai, which translates to how are you? Como vai is a casual phrase and has almost the exact same feeling and usage as how are you in English. The first word, como, means how. Como. 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 The next word is vai, which means go or goes. Vai. 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 So the whole phrase altogether is como vai, or how are you? So just some quick cultural and usage notes on these greetings. First, tudo bem is a question, and questions in Portuguese are formed by simply raising your voice at the end of the sentence. For example, tudo bem, with a rising sound, means, is everything well? And tudo bem, or tudo bem, with a flat or falling sound like those two that I just did, mean, everything's well, it's the response. Just raise your voice to make it a question and leave it flat or falling for statements. The only exceptions are when you use words like o which means what, como, which means how, onde, which means where, quem, which means who, quando, which means when, and por quê, which means why. These are the question words of Portuguese, and as you can see, they correspond very nicely with the English question words. These words indicate questions, and therefore you don't need the raised voice at the end. As a matter of fact, it's kind of difficult to do. For example, with como vai, we just learned you don't raise your voice because the como is already present. Como vai sounds funny, sounds odd in a Brazilian ear. You can say como vai, and it makes perfect sense. You don't need the raising voice at the end. It's okay. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Is everything well? Tudo bem? Tudo bem. Tudo bem? Good morning. Bom dia. Bom dia. Bom dia. Good afternoon. Boa tarde. Boa tarde. Boa tarde. Good evening or good night. Boa noite. Boa noite. Boa noite. How are you? Como vai? Como vai? Como vai?
Lesson 5.
Today we'll introduce parting greetings. A parting expression that can be used for all occasions is ciao, which literally means bye. Let's break it down by syllable. Cha, u. Now let's hear it again. Ciao. Now for those of you who have the PDF from the website, don't get caught up in the spelling. This is the same pronunciation as the Italian ciao or Spanish ciao. The Portuguese writing system is much more complicated than either Italian or Spanish and requires some unique lettering to make some of the sounds. Another, more casual parting greeting is até mais tarde, which literally means until more late, or until later. This is used identically to the way that Americans say, see you later. So first we have até, which means until. Até. Let's break it down. A, te. And one time fast. Até. Then we have mais, which means more. Let's hear it slow. Mais. And one time fast. Mais. And the last word we have is tarde. Let's break it down. Tarde. And one time fast. Tarde. Now this is the same word from the good afternoon phrase, boa tarde. This word actually has two different but related meanings. The central idea is after, in the sense of coming after something else. From the central idea, we derive the first meaning, afternoon, which happens after noon. The second meaning is late or later, in the sense of sometime after now. Now these two phrases are the basics, but there are lots of variations. For example, often people will say ciao ciao, just like Americans say bye bye. Once again, tone and feeling is extremely important, and loving, dismissive, longing, or impatient tones color the meaning of the word in important ways. Impatiently saying ciao carries the connotation of go away, while saying it with a gentle tone has a connotation of goodbye, but come back soon. Also, até mais tarde has many variations. You could say até mais, or even just até. But the feelings attached to these shorter phrases are important. For example, até mais tarde is very neutral. Could be happy, could be sad, could be playful, could be formal. Depends on your intonation and the situation that you're in. Até mais is a bit more relaxed, and probably the most common way to use this phrase, kind of like see ya in English. Then até is a bit more slangy, kind of like later in English. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Bye. Ciao. 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 See you later. Até mais tarde. Até mais tarde. Até mais tarde.
Lesson 6.
In today's lesson, we'll cover an extremely important phrase. Where is the bathroom? In Portuguese, where is the bathroom is onde fica o banheiro? Onde fica o banheiro? Let's break it down by syllable. Onde fica o banheiro. One time fast. Onde fica o banheiro? Let's take a look at the components. The first word, onde, means where. Let's break this down and hear it one more time. Onde. And one time fast. Onde. This is followed by fica, which in Portuguese is stays. Fica. 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 So to recap here, we have onde fica. Literally, this means where stays, or where is located. The word fica is used for things that are permanently located somewhere, like buildings, countries, and monuments. Let's take a look at the next word, o, which means the. O. Last we have banheiro, which means bathroom. Banheiro. 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 So altogether we have onde fica o banheiro. Literally this means where stays the bathroom, or where is the bathroom. This phrase is very useful if you're in a restaurant or at a meeting or in a new place, but if you're at someone's home, which is very probable because Brazilians love guests, a request like, may I use the bathroom, is much more appropriate. In Portuguese, may I use the bathroom is, eu poderia usar o banheiro? Eu poderia usar o banheiro? Eu poderia usar o banheiro? Let's take a look at the components. The first word, eu, means I. Eu. Next we have poderia, which means could or may. Poderia. 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 This is followed by usar, which in Portuguese is use. Usar. 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 So to recap here, we have eu poderia usar. Literally this means I could use, or I may use. Let's take a look at the next word, o, which means the. O. Let's take a look at the next word, o, which means the. O. And again, we have banheiro. 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 So altogether we have eu poderia usar o banheiro. So a quick culture tip on this that's very important for you to know and understand is that Brazilians put their toilet paper in a special trash can near the toilet. Don't flush the paper. The reality is that plumbing is done with small pipes and the paper clogs everything up. I don't know why they just don't put in bigger pipes, but that's how it's done. I once told an American this, and she thought I was trying to play a trick on her, so she didn't do it. Lo and behold, the toilet she was using got clogged and started overflowing. It wasn't a big deal, and we got everything taken care of and cleaned up pretty quick, but she was very embarrassed. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Where's the bathroom? Onde fica o banheiro? Onde fica o banheiro? Onde fica o banheiro? May I use the bathroom? Eu poderia usar o banheiro? Eu poderia usar o banheiro. Eu poderia usar o banheiro?
Lesson 7.
In today's lesson, we'll cover another extremely important phrase. Can you speak English? Using this phrase, as opposed to just speaking English at someone, is important for many reasons. For one, if the party you're speaking to doesn't understand English, at least they'll be able to understand what you're asking. Furthermore, it shows a lot of respect that you took the effort to learn even a little bit of their language. And for these reasons, and many more, we're going to cover this phrase. In Portuguese, do you speak English is Você fala inglês? Você fala inglês? Let's break it down by syllable. Você fala inglês? And one time fast. Você fala inglês? The first word, você, means you. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Você and você. Notice the strong part of the word, or stress, is on the last syllable. Se. Você. This is followed by fala, which in English is speak. Fala. Fa-la. Fala. The next word, inglês, means English. Inglês. Inglês. Notice again the stress is on the last syllable. So altogether we have Você fala inglês. Literally this means you speak English. But since it's a question, you raise your voice at the end and it becomes do you speak English? Now let's try a different language. How about Italian? Do you speak Italian? Você fala italiano? Você fala italiano? The word for Italian is italiano. Let's break it down. I-ta-li-a-no. And one time fast. Italiano. As you can see, only the word for the language changes. The rest stays the same. Você fala inglês? Você fala italiano? So you can put in any language you want. Just look it up in the dictionary and plug it into the phrase. In Brazil, English is studied in every school, but because there is such a large population and so few qualified English teachers, the English that many people speak isn't usually that good. But Brazilians are extremely caring, and I have never met a people that will try so hard to understand foreigners. So even if their English isn't that good, if you're patient, sooner or later you'll understand one another. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Do you speak English? Você fala inglês? Você fala inglês? Você fala inglês? Do you speak Italian? Você fala italiano? Você fala italiano? Você fala italiano?
Lesson 8.
I don't understand is a very useful phrase because most of the time, maybe even all of the time, it will be the truth. There is an adjustment period during which your ears will have to get used to Portuguese. And in Portuguese, I don't understand is eu não entendi. Eu não entendi. Let's break it down by syllable. Eu não entendi. And one time fast. Eu não entendi. The first word, eu, means I. Eu. Eu. This is followed by não, which in Portuguese is no. Não. Não. No. Then lastly we have entendi, which means understood. Entendi. En-teng-ji. Entendi. So altogether we have eu não entendi. Literally this means I know understood, which sounds funny in English, but it's perfectly correct in Portuguese. It's very normal when you're having a conversation for the other person to stop and ask, entendeu? 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 Literally, this means, did you understand? Or are you following me? Naturally, you would respond with a yes, which, by the way, in Portuguese is sim. 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 I learned this phrase and how to use it over the course of 1 hour from one lady who kept asking, entendeu? Blah, 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 blah. Entendeu? So frequently that I've never forgotten it. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
I don't understand. Eu não entendi. Eu não entendi. Eu não entendi. Yes. Sim. 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 Understand? Entendeu? Entendeu. Entendeu?
Lesson 9.
There will be many times when the Portuguese around you, or coming at you, is fast and furious, and you may not catch all or any of it. In instances like these, asking the speaker to say it again can prove the difference between understanding a crucial piece of information or spending the rest of the day trying to figure out where exactly you should have turned left. So, to prevent this from happening to you, and to tune your ear, you should use the following phrases over and over. In Portuguese, please could you repeat that is, por favor, você poderia repetir? Por favor, você poderia repetir? Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor, você poderia repetir? And one time fast. Por favor, você poderia repetir? The first term, por favor, you've already learned, and it means please. Next we have você, which means you. Você. Você. Then we have poderia, which means could, or would be able to. Poderia. Poderia. This is followed by repetir, which in English is repeat. Repetir. 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 So altogether we have por favor, você poderia repetir? Literally this means, please could you repeat that? The that is inferred in Portuguese and doesn't need to be said. At times, even repetition of what is said isn't enough to understand the speaker, as the words are still just too fast. When this happens, you can use the phrase, please, could you speak slower? In Portuguese, please, could you speak slower? Is, por favor, você poderia falar mais devagar? We've already looked at the first part of the phrase. Por favor, você poderia? So let's look at the next word, falar. Falar means to speak in English and is a very common word. Falar. Falar. This is followed by mais, which means more. Mais. 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 Thus far we have falar and mais. Literally, these mean speak more. Let's take a look at the last word, devagar, which means slow or slowly. Devagar. De-va-gar. Devagar. So altogether we have, por favor, você poderia falar mais devagar? Por favor, você poderia falar mais devagar? This means, please, could you speak slower? Por favor, você poderia means, please, could you? Insert phrase here. This is a great base phrase for making any type of request, and you'll see it over and over in these lessons. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Please, could you repeat that? Por favor, você poderia repetir? Por favor, você poderia repetir? Por favor, você poderia repetir? Please, could you speak it slower? Por favor, você poderia falar mais devagar? Por favor, você poderia falar mais devagar? Por favor, você poderia falar mais devagar?
Lesson 10.
In today's lesson, we'll cover phrases used for apologizing. These are extremely important because in Brazil, not only will you be speaking a different language, you'll be in a very different culture. On the surface, Brazil seems very modern and similar to other Western cultures, but just under the surface, it is a very different world. We'll start with desculpa. Desculpa. This word literally means to unguilt or to unblame, but has the same feeling as I'm sorry. Let's break it down by syllable. Desculpa. And one time fast. Desculpa. This phrase is used when you arrive late for a meeting, step on someone's foot by accident, or when you've done anything you shouldn't have and you feel bad about it. In the case that someone uses this expression toward you, the proper response is está desculpado, which literally means you are unguilted, but has the same feeling as you are forgiven. Está desculpado. Let's break it down by syllable. Está desculpado. And one time fast. Está desculpado. Now, while this is the proper answer, you will also hear things like tudo bem, everything is well, which we learned in our lesson on greetings, and não se preocupe, which means don't worry about it. Let's look a little bit closer at this one. Não se preocupe. The first word, não, we've already talked about, and it means no. The next word, se, doesn't really exist in English, but it kind of means yourself. Se. Se. The last word is preocupe, which means worry. Preocupe. Pre-o-cu-pi. Preocupe. So altogether we have não se preocupe, which means don't worry about it. Next, let's take a look at the phrase com licença. Com licença. Let's break it down by syllable. Com licença. And one time fast. Com licença. Com literally means with. Com. Com. And licença means permission. Licença. 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 So the phrase com licença means with your permission. The your being implied, and is used almost identically to the English excuse me. This phrase is used when you ask for someone's attention, like when you want to ask the name of a street, you can put com licença at the beginning of the phrase. Com licença is also used as a standalone phrase when you need to get by someone. For example, if you're in the supermarket and two women are chatting up a storm and happen to be blocking the aisle, you could say com licença, and they would quickly apologize and move out of the way. One last phrase you should know is dá licença. Basically, dá licença has the same meaning as com licença, with one important exception. Com licença is a request, dá licença is a command. People usually only use dá licença when they are irritated or angry, so I suggest not using, but if you hear it, it means get out of the way. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
I'm sorry. Desculpa. 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 You are forgiven. Está desculpado. Está desculpado. Está desculpado. Excuse me. Com licença. Com licença. Com licença.
Lesson 11.
Today we'll cover a little bit of etiquette. In Brazil, less than 20% of the population smokes, and when you enter a restaurant, it's assumed you don't smoke. Or at least, you won't in the restaurant. If you want to smoke in a restaurant, you'll need to ask for the smoking section, which is usually separate from the other tables, but most Brazilians just leave the restaurant and smoke outside. The terms for non-smoking and smoking are good to learn because signs might be posted in places you won't expect. Non-smoking in Portuguese is não fumante. Não fumante. Let's break it down by syllable. Não fumante. And one time fast. Não fumante. The first word, não, means no or non. Let's hear it one more time. Não. This is followed by fumante, which in English is smoking. Fumante. 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 And altogether we have não fumante. Literally this means non-smoking. And places where you can smoke have signs with the word fumante. Let's hear this word slowly. Fumante. And break it down. Fumante. And one time fast. Fumante. Speaking of restaurants, most restaurants in Brazil are a buffet-style self-service restaurant. There, you not only choose whatever you want from the large selection of food, but also where you sit, so you don't have to need to worry about asking the host for a seat. Brazilians have developed their own unique style of the buffet called rodízio. 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 Rodízio is where waiters come by your table with a sample of what was recently cooked and ask if you want any. You can take as much as you like of whatever is there. The most famous examples of rodízio are the churrascarias, or steakhouses, which I'll explain in another lesson, and the pizza restaurants. You have got to try the banana pizza with cinnamon and sugar. It's one of my favorites. A word to the wise about rodízio is only take what you can eat at the moment. The first time I went to a churrascaria in Brazil, they brought out so many pieces of meat, and I wanted to try all of them, so I took a little bit of everything. Pretty soon, I had to grab another plate to hold all of the meat, and most of it got cold before I could eat it. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Non-smoking. Não fumante. Não fumante. Não fumante. Smoking. Fumante. Fumante. Fumante.
Lesson 12.
Table manners are a must wherever you go. In this lesson, we'll cover some basic table etiquette when sitting down for a meal in Brazil. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Brazilian culture is a food culture, and if you want to experience Brazil, you start with the food. Whether you are in a restaurant or in an individual's home, the most important thing to remember is to sincerely compliment. As I've said in a previous lesson, Brazilians work very hard at cooking, and one of the biggest pitfalls that foreigners encounter is not showing enough gratitude. Even if the food isn't that good, the cook almost certainly spent hours trying to make it good. So thank them for the effort. I've already addressed a few ways to compliment someone's food, but in this category, the more you know the better. In Portuguese, this food is essa comida é. Essa comida é. Let's break it down by syllable. Essa comida é. Now here it is once again. Essa comida é. We've already covered each of these words, but never together. Essa comida é means this food is something. Well, what is it? Is it great? Is it fantastic? Is it delicious, interesting, marvelous? In my experience, it's probably a combination of all of these, so let's learn each word so you can describe the food properly. Let's start with great, which in Portuguese is ótimo. 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 Then we have fantástico, which in English is fantastic. Fantástico. 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 We've already learned delicious, but let's review it quickly. Deliciosa. 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 Next we have interessante, which means interesting. Interessante. 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 Last we have maravilhosa, which means marvelous. This word is often used to describe food in Brazil and doesn't sound patronizing at all. In fact, it sounds very grateful. Maravilhosa. 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 These are typical words used in Brazil to compliment and thank for the food. Now let's talk about what to do when you eat. In Brazil, there are no fixed phrases that surround food beyond just complimenting it. Some families pray before eating, some don't. Some will wait until everyone has their food before anyone can start eating, others won't. For these kinds of things, I suggest paying close attention to what people around you are doing and copy them. So, to a Brazilian, every weekend and every holiday is reason enough for a party. And to Brazilians, that means churrasco. Every Brazilian is accustomed to some churrasco on the weekend with his friends and family. So, what is churrasco? Basically, it's barbecue done the way it should be. Cooking picanha, which is top sirloin, rump roast, sausage, chicken wings, garlic bread, and family for hours. That's churrasco. Brazilians never miss a good churrasco. Also, scattered throughout Brazil are churrascarias, which are all-you-can-eat steakhouses. Following the rodízio format I explained in a previous lesson, you pay a certain amount per person and eat as much as you want of whatever meat they bring to you, along with a salad bar that has way more stuff than any salad bar I've ever seen in the United States. The price of a good churrascaria varies from 20 reais to 50 reais per person, which is about 10 to 20 US dollars. But the best churrascaria I've ever been to was in Gurupi, Tocantins, and was 12 reais, or $6. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
This food is. Essa comida é. Essa comida é. Essa comida é. Great. Ótimo. 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 Fantastic. Fantástico. 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 Delicious. Deliciosa. 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 Interesting. Interessante. 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 Marvelous. maravilhosa, maravilhosa, maravilhosa.
Lesson 13.
In Brazilian culture, when you go out to eat in a group, each person pays their own way. Some exceptions do exist, like employer-sponsored meals, but unless you've been told otherwise, plan on paying for what you eat. When you're in a public setting, like at a restaurant, there aren't any special rituals or prayers or sayings that happen before you eat. That said, Brazilian culture is a food culture, and phrases like "Que comida deliciosa" or "Isto é muito gostoso" will fill the air. Let's take a look at these two phrases. First, we'll look at "Que comida deliciosa." Que comida deliciosa. Let's break this down. Que comida deliciosa. And one time fast. Que comida deliciosa. This phrase means, what delicious food! The second phrase is, isto é muito gostoso. Isto é muito gostoso. Let's break this down. Isto é muito gostoso. And one time fast. Isto é muito gostoso. This phrase means, this is very tasty. The first two words are isto é, and they mean this is. Isto é. Isto é. Isto é. The next word is muito, and it means very. We talked about it in the lesson on thank you, so let's review it right now. Muito. 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 The last word is gostoso, and it means tasty. But it can have many other meanings. For example, fleece coats are often described as gostoso because they're so soft. Altogether we have isto é muito gostoso. Literally this means this is very tasty. Brazil has many different regions, and in each region food is prepared differently. The simple, normal, everyday meal consists of rice, beans, salad, some kind of vegetable, and a piece of meat. The food is always fresh, so it needs to be washed, cut, seasoned, and lastly cooked, which takes anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes. The most important meal in a Brazilian's day is lunch. Dinner is usually more like a snack to keep you from getting hungry before bed, like a banana and some tea or milk and a piece of cake. Leftovers from lunch are eaten for dinner also, so that nothing is wasted, and lunch can be made fresh the next day. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
What delicious food! Que comida deliciosa! Que comida deliciosa! Que comida deliciosa! This is very tasty. Isto é muito gostoso. Isto é muito gostoso. Isto é muito gostoso.
Lesson 14.
This lesson is very straightforward, as we're going to cover counting 0 through 10. Let's jump right in.
0, 0, 0, 0. 1, uma, uma, uma. 2, dois, duas, dois, duas, dois, duas. 3, três, três, três. 4, quatro, quatro, quatro. 5, cinco, cinco, cinco. 6, seis, seis, seis. 7, sete, sete, sete. 8, oito, oito, oito. 9, nove, nove, nove. 10, dez, dez, dez.
Counting things in Portuguese is very straightforward as the number is followed by the item, just like English. For example, one person is uma pessoa. The number uma comes first, followed by the item, in this case, pessoa. In Portuguese, nouns have singular and plural forms, therefore, if there are two people, it becomes duas pessoas. Just put the S at the end. As I explained in a previous lesson, Portuguese nouns also have gender. For example, the word for person, pessoa, is feminine. It means that the feminine form of the number 2, duas, has to be used. Dois pessoas is wrong and very harsh on the ears. Another important word to know is meia, which means 6. It isn't actually a number, but it always means 6. This word references to the term meia dúzia, which literally means half a dozen, or 6. Let's break this down and hear it once again. Meia dúzia. Meia dúzia. The word meia means half, and the word dúzia means dozen, and over time the word meia has come to simply mean 6 in everyday conversation, like telephone numbers. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
0, zero, zero, zero. 1, uma, uma, uma. 2, dois, duas, dois, duas, dois, duas. 3, três, três, três. 4, quatro, quatro, quatro. 5, cinco, cinco, cinco. 6, seis, seis, seis. 7, sete, sete, sete. 8, oito, oito, oito. 9, nove, nove, nove. 10, dez, dez, dez.
Lesson 15.
Today we're going to continue counting as we cover 11 through 100. Let's just quickly review 0 through 10.
0, zero, zero, zero. 1, uma, uma, uma. 2, dois, duas, dois, duas, dois, duas. 3, três, três, três. 4, quatro, quatro, quatro. 5, cinco, cinco, cinco. 6, seis, seis, seis. 7, sete, sete, sete. 8, oito, oito, oito. 9, nove, nove, nove. 10, dez, dez, dez.
In Portuguese, counting from 11 to 20 is also very straightforward, so let's jump right in.
11, onze, onze, 11, 12, 12, 12, 12, 13, 13, 13, 13, 14, 14, 14, 14, 15, 15, 15, 15, 16, 16, 16, 16, 17, 17, 17, 17, 18, 18, 18, 18, 19, 19, 19, 19, 20, 20, 20, 20.
A quick tip about numbers in Portuguese is to say the numbers one at a time. If you were born in 1984, for example, just say 1984, which is literally 1984. This is not the correct way to say years in Portuguese, but it is understandable. In English, we often group numbers together as we say them, like 19 and then 84. Grouping numbers like this makes sense in English, but not in Portuguese. So just say the numbers slowly, one at a time, and you'll avoid probably 75% of the number-related problems I had while I worked as an assistant to a finance secretary. So here are all the numbers from 30 to 100.
30, 30, 30, 30, 40, 40, 40, 40, 50, 50, 50, 50, 60, 60, 60, 60, 70, 70, 70, 70, 80, 80, 80, 80, 90, 90, 90, 90. Finally, we have the number for 100. 100, 100, 100.
Numbers from 21 to 99 are formed by combining these two lessons. For example, you say 20 in Portuguese, which is 20, followed by the Portuguese word for and, which is e. Then you say 3, which in Portuguese is tres. So you put it all together and get 20 e tres. Let's hear that one time fast. 23. This literally means 20 and 3, or 23.
11, 11, 11, 11, 12, 12, 12, 12, 13, 13, 13, 13, 14, 14, 14, 14, 15, 15, 15, 15, 16, 16, 16, 16, 17, 17, 17, 17, 18, 18, 18, 18, 19, 19, 19, 19, 20, 20, 20, 20, 30, 30, 30, 30, 40, 40, 40, 40, 50, 50, 50, 50, 60, 60, 60, 60, 70, 70, setenta, 70, 80, 80, 80, 80, 90, 90, 90, 90, 100, 100, 100, 100.
Lesson 16.
In Brazil, the currency is the real, or reais when plural. Let's practice that pronunciation. Real, 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 and reais, reais, reais. Its monetary symbol is a capital R followed by the dollar symbol. Paper denominations range from 1 real to 100 reais. As of January 1st, 2009, the exchange rate was roughly 2 reais and 20 cents to 1 US dollar, or 45 cents to 1 Brazilian real. Put simply, just divide the reais price by 2 and you get the dollar price. Brazilian coins are called centavos. 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 And run in denominations from 5 centavos, 10 centavos, 25 centavos, 50 centavos, and 1 real coins. The first thing you'll recognize about the real is that it is very colorful. Every bill is a different color and most have more than one color on them. For example, the 20 real bill is bright yellow with red and brown accents and a light yellow background. I've heard many Americans describe it as looking like Monopoly money. Like most currencies, the bills have many unique images and designs. I'm going to give a quick overview of what is on most of the bills and coins. The centavo coin is rarely used, and even though it was discontinued in 2005, some are still in circulation. Coins are said simply with the number value then the word centavos. All Brazilian coins have a large number indicating their value with the word centavos underneath. The Southern Cross is also on the front of all Brazilian coins. The Southern Cross is a star constellation and is important in Brazilian culture, history, and religion. Bills are spoken similarly with the number, then the word real, real, or reais if the number is more than one. For example, 2 reais. So on the back of the 5 centavos coin is a picture of Pedro Alves Cabral, the navigator who discovered Brazil. The 10 centavos coin has a picture of Emperor Pedro I, the first monarch of Brazil. The 25 centavos coin has a picture of Field Marshal Manuel Deodoro da Fonseca, Brazil's first Republican president. The 50 centavos coin has a picture of José Maria da Silva Paranhos Jr., Brazil's most influential Minister of Foreign Affairs. The real coin has a brass-colored ring on the outside and a silver-colored circle inside. The inside has the effigy of the Republic, which is the symbol of the Republic to the Brazilians. On the front of all bills is the same effigy of the Republic and a large number showing the value of that bill. The real bill is green with a picture of a hummingbird on the back. The 2 reais bill is blue with a picture of a turtle on the back. The 5 reais bill is a kind of pinkish purple with an egret on the back. The 10 reais bill is red and has a green-winged macaw on the back. The 20 reais bill, as I described above, is yellow and has a golden lion tamarim, which is a type of monkey, on the back. The 50 reais bill is a shade of light orange with a picture of a jaguar on the back. Last, we have the 100 reais bill. It is very rare, and you probably won't see one unless you exchange a lot of money or stay in Brazil for an exceptionally long period of time. It's a light blue color like tropical ocean water and has a fish called a dusky groper on the back. There is also a special 10 reais bill that feels like plastic when you touch it and is a mixture of orange, blue, and red. It has Pedro Álvares Cabral on the front and a bright red transparent circle on the side. That was a lot of information I just ran through, and I hope you caught all of it. Now you have a better idea about Brazilian money, and hopefully you've gotten an idea about how much you'll be spending through these lessons. Now, with that understanding, how much money should you actually carry around with you? That's a hard question, because it depends on what you'll do. While I lived in Brazil, I rarely had more than 50 reais with me. But if you're going to be taking the taxi a lot or buying lots of stuff from street vendors, you will need more. I would suggest at least 100 reais, maybe even 200 reais in your wallet or somewhere on you that you have access to. One tip is to not have on you or use debit cards while you're in Brazil. Use credit cards instead. 2 reasons. If your credit card gets stolen, it isn't your money that's being lost. It's the bank's. And you can call and cancel it within 15 minutes of it being stolen, and debit cards typically take much longer. Also, most credit cards, in my experience, won't charge you each time you make a purchase, and debit cards will, usually about 5% of the money exchanged. So, bring cash with you, exchange it, and anytime you need to use cash, use the cash you've exchanged. But if you can use a card, use it, and use a credit card, not a debit card. Oh, and just for a reference, a Big Mac meal costs about 10 reais, or $4.53. But in Brazil, you can get a lot more food and better food for about the same price at any self-service restaurant. Another nice tidbit of information is that in Brazil, very few places have sales tax. The price you see is the price you pay.
Lesson 17.
This lesson covers a phrase for all you shoppers out there. Today we'll look at the phrase, how much does it cost? You can use this phrase at the market, at the restaurant, on the bus, at your hotel, on the beach, and many other places. You know, depending on your shopping habits, this may just be the most useful phrase we cover. In Brazil, how much does it cost is quanto custa. Quanto custa. Let's look at the first word, quanto. Quanto means how much in English and is used for amounts like price, size, and time. Let's break it down by syllable. Quanto. And one time fast. Quanto. Then we have custa, which means cost. Custa. 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 In daily life, this word is almost exclusively for money and prices. So altogether we have quanto custa, which literally means how much does it cost? Context is very important in Portuguese, so if you're looking at a shirt and you ask quanto custa, the salesman will understand by context that you're asking about the shirt. You don't need to be specific or say, how much is this? He knows what you're talking about. I'm married, so at one time I needed to get an engagement ring. I looked around a lot in the United States, but soon realized I could get one for much cheaper in Brazil. So on a trip to Brazil, I went to a market and visited several jewelry shops. I have very pale skin, so the vendor immediately identified me as American, and in their mind, rich. This isn't true. I would look at the rings and ask quanto custa, and they would give me some extremely high price. One place tried to charge me $1,000 for a simple gold ring. Needless to say, I went to quite a few shops. Finally, I found one that would make the kind of ring I wanted, but still keep the price within reason. So much within reason that I bought my wedding ring from the same store, both of them for less than $400. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
How much does it cost? Quanto custa? Quanto custa? Quanto custa?
Lesson 18.
In this lesson, we'll learn about a place crucial to your travels in this modern age, the Internet Cafe. In Brazil, there are two types of Internet cafes. The first is a lan house. Lan house. Lan house. These are the cafes that are usually dark and filled with teenagers playing games over the internet. They yell and scream when they kill something, and that's okay at a LAN house. Trade-off is that these are the most common, one every 5 blocks or so, and usually the cheapest, somewhere around 3 reais per hour, which is about $1.50 per hour. Cybercafé is more along the lines of what we usually think of as an internet cafe. Usually it's a kind of bookshop mixed with a coffee shop, and the cheapest one I've ever found was 5 reais an hour, and I have paid 12 reais per hour, which is about $6 per hour. The term cybercafé was borrowed from English, and as you can tell, it's pronounced pretty similarly to the English. Cybercafé. 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 There are many cybercafes and LAN houses located throughout the city, so finding one shouldn't be a problem. However, so that things go smoothly once inside, let's go through the internet cafe experience step by step. In Brazil, when you walk into the cybercafé or LAN house, the reception desk is usually near the door. The most universal phrase you can use is, please, one computer with internet for 30 minutes. In Portuguese, this phrase is, por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. Let's break this down by syllable. Por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. And one time fast. Por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. The first word, por favor, you already know. The second word is which is the number 1. Then we have the word computador, which means computer. Computador. Computador. The next word, com, means with. Com. The next word, internet, is another borrowed word from English and means, obviously, internet. 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 So, thus far we have por favor, computador com internet, which in English means, please, a computer with internet. It's important to ask for the internet because some computers might not have it. This is followed by the phrase por 30 minutos. The first word here is por, and it means for. Por. The next word is 30, which we learned in our lesson on numbers as the number 30. 30. Then we have minutos, which in Portuguese is minutes. Minutos. Minutos. So altogether we have por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. Literally this means, please, one computer with internet for 30 minutes. The most common system is that you pay at the desk before you use the computer. So you pay for 30 minutes, and they assign you a computer, and you sit there and use it. They have a program that controls the computer, and after those 30 minutes are up, the computer will pause, and you'll either have to pay more to continue or just get up and leave. Remember to say obrigado and smile when you leave. For all you laptop packing world trekkers out there, Wi-Fi isn't very common in Brazil. So don't count on it. I stayed at a 5-star hotel in Foz de Iguaçu a few years ago, which is a huge international tourist destination, and even they just had a hardwired network cable. It was pretty fast internet, probably about 7 megabytes per second, but no Wi-Fi. And finally, there is one more phrase that might prove useful. Password and username, please. In Portuguese, password and username, please, is senha e nome do usuário, por favor. Senha e nome do usuário, por favor. Let's break it down by syllable. Senha e nome do usuário, por favor. Now let's hear it once again. Senha e nome do usuário, por favor. The first word, senha, means password. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Senha and senha. This is followed by e, which in English is and. E. Next we have nome, which means name. Nome. No. Me. Nome. Then we have do, which means of the. Do. This is followed by usuário, which in English means user. Usuário. Usuário. Then we have the word por favor, which we've already learned. So altogether we have senha e nome do usuário, por favor. Literally this means password and username, please. These words are important to know even if you never say or hear them, because if you use an internet cafe, you're going to need to read them so you can know what information to put into the blank field on the screen. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Please, one computer with internet for 30 minutes. Por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. Por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. Por favor, computador com internet por 30 minutos. Password and username, please. Senha e nome do usuário, por favor. Senha e nome do usuário, por favor. Senha e nome do usuário, por favor.
Lesson 19.
The bus is an important means of transportation. However, before you get on the bus, you probably want to confirm if the bus is going to your destination. We can accomplish this by asking, will this bus go to, and then add your destination. In Brazil, the best way to get somewhere is to ask about landmarks near where you want to go. Let's say your hotel is on Copacabana Beach, so we'll use Copacabana Beach as our landmark. So in Portuguese, will this bus go to Copacabana is esse ônibus passa em Copacabana? Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana? Let's break it down by syllable. Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana. And one time fast. Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana. The first word, esse, means that. Esse. This is followed by ônibus, which in Portuguese is bus. Ônibus. Ônibus. The next word, passa, means pass or pass by. Passa. Passa. Next we have em, which means in. Em. Then you just plug in your destination. Copacabana. So altogether we have esse ônibus passa em Copacabana. Literally this means this bus passes by Copacabana. Since it is a question, always remember that you need to raise your voice at the end of the sentence. Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana. These first two words, esse ônibus, this bus, can often be left out because of the context. If you say, passa em Copacabana, are you going by Copacabana? The esse ônibus part is understood. Once you have the right bus, there are a few things you need to know about riding the bus. When do you pay? Usually there are two employees on the bus, the driver and the cobrador, or cashier. The cobrador will be in a raised seat about 15 feet back from the front door. You pay him when you cross to the rear part of the bus. How much is it? Prices depend on distance to travel and where you are. I've seen prices anywhere from 50 centavos up to 4 reais. But the average price is between 1 real and 2 reais. Remember that all tickets are one way. How do you get off? There's always at least 2 cords or ropes of some kind inside the bus on each side. If you see your stop approaching, you just pull that cord, which sends a signal to the driver to pull over at the next stop. Many cities in Brazil, but not all, have what is called o terminal. This means the terminal or end stop on a route and is where you get off, but some are special. These special terminals are more like changing stations than actual stop points. You do have to get off the bus, but you can get on another one for free. For example, you live in Várzea Grande, about 30 minutes outside of Cuiabá, which is the capital of Mato Grosso, a Brazilian state that borders Bolivia. You need to get to the far side of Cuiabá, about 25 miles away. Normally, you would have to pay for and get on and off of 4 or 5 buses to get there at a cost of about 8 reais each way. Then you remember that both Várzea Grande and Cuiabá have o terminal. So you ask the bus that pulls up, esse ônibus passa em o terminal? They respond, sim, and you board the bus and pay the 1 real and 60 centavos ticket. You arrive at the terminal and change to a bus going to the Cuiabá terminal without paying for a new ticket. Then you arrive at the Cuiabá terminal, change buses to one of the other terminals closer to your final destination, once again not paying for a new ticket. Then you arrive at the next o terminal and change buses again to your destination, again not paying for a new ticket. So you arrive at your destination for 1 real and 60 centavos instead of 8 reais. The trade-off is that going from terminal to terminal is slower, anywhere from 10 minutes to one personal case of 3 hours slower. But you saved yourself a total of 6 reais and 40 centavos one way. If you did the same thing on the way back, you'd save over 13 reais, and that's a decent meal at a restaurant. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Will this bus go to Copacabana? Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana? Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana. Esse ônibus passa em Copacabana?
Lesson 20.
Once on the bus, the only clues you get about when to get off are visual. Buildings, streetlights, shopping malls, beaches, landmarks, etc. Road signs are few and far between, so you can't use them, and you will go by literally hundreds of stops that all look exactly the same, don't have names, and have no other distinguishing marks. That means that unless you are familiar with your destination, you'll probably miss it. You need to know the terrain. Or ask for help. In this lesson, we'll learn exactly how to ask for help with the phrase, "Could you tell me when we arrive at the?" Only two people on that bus know all the stops on the route: the driver and the cobrador. Since the driver is busy taking you to your destination, I would suggest not asking him. That leaves the cobrador. So here we go. A quick trip to the Banco Central, or Central Bank in Brasília. In Portuguese, please, could you tell me when we arrive at the Central Bank is, por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Now let's hear it once again. Por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? The first part, por favor, você poderia, you'll hear over and over in these lessons. It is the standard and courteous way of requesting something. The next word is me. Me. Not surprisingly, me in Portuguese means me in English too. The next word, falar, means speak or tell. Falar. 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 This is followed by quando, which in English is when. Quando. 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 So we have the request phrase, por favor, você poderia, followed by me falar quando. This means, please could you tell me when? Let's take a look at the next word. Chegar. 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 Chegar, which means arrive. The next word in the phrase is até. 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 In English, até means until. The last part of this phrase is the name of your destination. In this case, o Banco Central. O Banco Central. O Banco Central. O Banco Central. You can substitute this with the name of any other location or destination. So altogether we have, por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Literally, this translates to, by favor, could you me tell when arrive until the central bank? As you can see, word order in Portuguese is a bit different from English, but don't worry about that. In Portuguese, this is very intelligent and polite. This phrase means, please, could you tell me when we arrive at the central bank? A scary thing happened to my wife while she was in Rio de Janeiro. One afternoon, she got on an overfull bus going toward Copacabana on her way back home. On the bus was a French family, father, mother, and two children. They looked completely lost and didn't know when to get off. They were in the back of the bus close to the exit door, and the father moved forward to the front of the bus to ask the cobrador something. Only problem was that the Frenchman didn't speak Portuguese, nor had he used survivalphrases.com, because the cobrador didn't understand a thing. The Frenchman yelled something in French back to his wife and children. Someone gave the signal that they wanted to get off the bus, and when the bus stopped, the mother and children got off the bus with the father still inside. The bus was too full for him to get to the back door in time, and the bus started moving again. They started yelling something at the driver, I presume something like stop. The mother and children ran after the bus thinking it would stop, but it didn't. At the next stop, the Frenchman got off, and as the bus drove away, my wife saw them reunite. This story illustrates a few important points. First, a little bit of language goes a long way. Second, buses in Brazil can only stop at bus stops. By law, they are not allowed to stop anywhere else, so don't ask. Third, it is very difficult to move around inside a bus when it's full. This should be obvious, but remember to think ahead. When your bus stop is coming, get to the back of the bus early. It's better to stand around a bit than miss your stop. Fourth, most bus stops in Brazil are not that far apart. The French family was able to walk to each other rather quickly. On a typical route, the bus will stop about every 800 meters, so even if you miss your stop, you can usually walk back quickly.
Please, could you tell me when we arrive at the Banco Central? Por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Por favor, você poderia me falar quando chegar até o Banco Central? Is the terminal the next stop? O terminal é o próximo ponto? O terminal é o próximo ponto. O terminal é o próximo ponto?
Lesson 21.
When traveling long distances in Brazil, buses can be a cheap way of getting there. In today's lesson, we're going to work on getting a ticket to Fortaleza. Let's hear that name again. Fortaleza. This city is located on the northeast part of Brazil and is well known for its beaches. In Portuguese, a ticket to Fortaleza, please, is uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. Uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. Let's break it down by syllable. Uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. And one time fast. Uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. The first word, uma, is the feminine form of the number 1. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Uma. This is followed by passagem, which in English is ticket. Note the similarity to the English word passage. Passagem. Passagem. And passagem. Next we have para, which means to. Para. Para. So to recap here, we have uma passagem para. Literally this means one ticket to, and then you just plug in the destination, Fortaleza. Let's take a look at the last term, por favor, which means please. Por favor. Por favor. So altogether we have uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. Literally this means one ticket to Fortaleza, please. Now if you want to buy more than one ticket, for example, 2 tickets, you can accomplish this by saying Duas passagens para Fortaleza, por favor. Duas passagens para Fortaleza, por favor. Let's break it down by syllable. Duas passagens para Fortaleza, por favor. Now let's hear it again. Duas passagens para Fortaleza, por favor. Notice that only two things happen. We substitute the number duas for uma and make passagem plural. Passagens. From there on, all you do is change the number. Duas for tres, or 17, or 30. Now you also might need to ask, how much is it to Fortaleza? So, we use the same phrase we learned in lesson 6, quanto custa. In Portuguese, this is really simple because you just put the quanto custa phrase together with the phrase we just learned, uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. And the whole phrase becomes, quanto custa uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor? Let's hear that a bit slower. Quanto custa uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor? Now let's hear it one time fast. Quanto custa uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor? Now you should be aware that word order is more fluid in Portuguese than in English. For example, you could reorder these phrases to por favor, uma passagem para Fortaleza, quanto custa? These two phrases have exactly the same meaning in Portuguese. How much is it to Fortaleza? Long-distance bus trips in Brazil are typically uncomfortable. You rarely have control over where you sit or who sits next to you as the seats are assigned. So the following is a list of tips for making that trip as pleasant as it can be. First, I usually wear comfortable clothes and shoes, and I bring an extra pair of socks in my carry-on. Second, it's hot in Brazil, so they turn on the air conditioning, if they have it, which is nice during the day, but if your trip happens at night, the air conditioning is typically still on full blast, and it can get very, very cold. That is why I always have a blanket with me on the bus. Third, there are little TVs and they show films, but they'll be in Portuguese. These films are great ways to learn more Portuguese because they are often dubbed Hollywood films you've probably seen. Fourth, the bus stops about every 4 hours for about 10 to 20 minutes to refuel and pick up new passengers. You are allowed to walk around outside, and I suggest buying food at the little shops and bakeries that are close by. Fifth, be back in time, because the bus will not wait for you. Sixth, whenever I travel, I bring something for me to do. Read a book, listen to music, etc. But be careful not to leave any valuables as you exit the bus. The large crowds and high traffic makes recovery of any valuables very improbable.
A ticket to Fortaleza, please. Uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. Uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. Uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor. How much is it to Fortaleza? Quanto custa uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor? Quanto custa uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor? Quanto custa uma passagem para Fortaleza, por favor?
Lesson 22.
In Brazil, riding the bus is one of the best ways to get around both locally and long distance. However, there is another mode of transportation that, if used properly, can save you lots of time and money. Depending on the region of the country you're in, the name changes, so let's assume you're in Brasília, where it's called lotação. Let's set up the situation. You're at the bus stop in Brasília. The bus you want to take hasn't shown up when a large van pulls up. The side door opens, and a man starts shouting something you don't understand, but you catch the name of your destination, Taguatinga. What's going on? These vans are the lotação I mentioned earlier. They are independent local companies that act as auxiliaries to the buses. They are similar modes of transport, but they have different rules. For example, the guy shouting is the cobrador, just like in the buses. You pay him to get on. So you hear him shout your destination. What do? You should ask him how much it is to your destination. In our situation, Taguatinga. You ask this by saying, Quanto custa para Taguatinga? This is a great phrase for both the bus and these vans. Let's break this down. Quanto custa para Taguatinga? And one time fast. Quanto custa para Taguatinga? We've already learned the first two words in the lesson on how much. These words are quanto and custa. And one time together. Quanto custa? These words together mean how much does it cost? Quanto custa? Quanto custa? The next word, para, means to. Para. 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 Then we just add on our destination, Taguatinga. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Ta-gua-chin-ga and Taguatinga. So altogether we have Quanto custa para Taguatinga? Literally this means how much does it cost to Taguatinga? Now you found the right van, found out how much to pay, and are now on your way. But how do you get off? There's no cord like on the buses. There is a simple phrase you say to the cobrador that will get you off at the next stop. Próxima parada, which means next stop. Próxima parada. Próxima parada. Let's break it down. Próxima parada. And one time fast. Próxima parada. The first word is próxima, which in Portuguese is next. Próxima. 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 The next word is parada, which means stop. Parada. 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 So altogether we have próxima parada. Literally this means next stop. A quick note about this phrase is that it will change from region to region and even from person to person. You might hear próxima desce, which means I will get off at the next stop, or próximo ponto, which means next point, in the sense of next stopping point. Or sometimes they shorten the phrase and it becomes próxima, or even just prós, which means next. But they all mean the same thing. Let me out at the next stop. In Brazil, there are many modes of transportation, both public and private, and every state will be a little different. In Brasília, for example, you can catch a bus, these lotação, metro, taxi, and even a carona. Carona means to get a ride with someone for free. Or in São Paulo, a very large city, you can find all of these plus mototaxi, which is just like a taxi service except you'll be on a motorbike instead of a car. Electric buses, helicopters, if you have that kind of money, and a random mixture of several other things. In São Paulo, the fastest way anywhere is the mototaxi. The main reason why these are so fast is that these motorbikes drive between the lanes of traffic, and they do it a lot. Since they do that in Brazil, the police can't really pull them over because the traffic is too thick, and the mototaxi drivers are always at full throttle. Now, I won't recommend taking mototaxi because of the obvious health risks, but lots of people in Brazil do it, so it must work at least some of the time. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
How much does it cost to Taguatinga? Quanto custa para Taguatinga? Quanto custa para Taguatinga? Quanto custa para Taguatinga? Next stop. Próxima parada. Próxima parada. Próxima parada.
Lesson 23.
In this lesson, we'll cover a phrase used to get you to your destination when taking a taxi. We'll look at the most basic way to express this, which is the word to followed by a destination. In today's lesson, we'll use O Cristo Redentor in Rio de Janeiro. Here it is once again. O Cristo Redentor. This means the Redeemer Christ. This location is known for the enormous statue of Jesus Christ that can be seen from any point within the city. So now let's go over what to say to the taxi driver to get there. In Portuguese, to the Cristo Redentor is ao Cristo Redentor. Ao Cristo Redentor. Let's break it down by syllable. A o Cristo Redentor. Portuguese has two words for the English word to. We've already learned the word para means to, but para has a permanency feeling. So para o Cristo Redentor has a connotation that you will be staying there for a long time, like months. The word a also means to, but it doesn't have the permanency feeling. So ao Cristo Redentor means you are going just for today. Let's hear this word slowly and then one time fast. Ah. Ah. Next we have our destination. O Cristo Redentor. Let's break this down and hear it one more time. O Cristo Redentor. O Cristo Redentor. This is the most basic way of expressing where you would like to go. Well, actually, just saying your desired destination should work, but speaking the local language is one of the most fun things you can do on your travels. So let's go over another option. You can also say, I would like to go to Cristo Redentor, which in Portuguese is Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Let's break it down by syllable. Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Now let's hear it again. Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Let's take a look at the components. The first word, eu, means I. Eu. Eu. This is followed by gostaria de, which is actually two words, but we'll learn them together. Gostaria de means would like. Gostaria de. Gostaria de. Next we have ir, which means to go. Ir. Ir. So to recap here, we have Eu gostaria de ir. Literally this means I would like to go. Then you just add on our phrase, ao Cristo Redentor. So altogether we have Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. which means I would like to go to Cristo Redentor. In Brazil, you aren't required to tip the driver, but tips are accepted. Typically, the tip isn't very large, 2 to 5 reais, but if you like the driver, you tip according to your gratitude. One more helpful phrase when taking a taxi is, here is fine. This phrase will allow you to get out of the taxi whenever and wherever you want. In Portuguese, here is fine is aqui está bem. Aqui está bem. Let's break it down by syllable. Aqui está bem. The first word, aqui, means here. Aqui. 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 The next word is está, which means is. Está. 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 Last we have bem, which is the same word from tudo bem and literally means well. Bem. Bang. This word sounds a lot like the word bang in English, except you don't put the G sound at the end. Bang. So altogether we have aqui está bem, which means here is fine. I remember a time when I was going to a large bus station in Brasilia, where a friend of mine was waiting for me. I wasn't sure exactly where he was at the bus station, so I just told the taxi driver, rodoviária, por favor. Rodoviária was the name of that particular bus station. We stopped at a light a little before the bus station, and I saw my friend, so I checked the meter in the front seat, and it said 48 reais and 63 centavos. Pulled out a 50 reais bill, said, aqui está bem, handed him the bill, and got out. I did it fast enough to get to the sidewalk before traffic started again, and went on with my day. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
To Cristo Redentor. Ao Cristo Redentor. Ao Cristo Redentor. Ao Cristo Redentor. I would like to go to Cristo Redentor. Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Eu gostaria de ir ao Cristo Redentor. Here is fine. Aqui está bem. Aqui está bem. Aqui está bem.
Lesson 24.
In this lesson, we'll introduce you to a phrase that will help you track down that specific something you're looking for. Today's phrase is, where can I buy something? First, we need a something, so let's use the word roupas, which means clothes. Let's break it down by syllable. Roupas. Now let's hear it once again. Roupas. In Portuguese, where can I buy clothes is onde posso comprar roupas? Onde posso comprar roupas? Let's break it down by syllable. Onde posso comprar roupas? Now let's hear it once again. Onde posso comprar roupas? The first word, onde, means where. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Onde and onde. This is followed by posso, which in English is I can. Posso. Posso. And posso. So to recap here, we have onde posso. Literally, this means where can I? Let's take a look at the next word. Comprar, which means buy. Comprar and comprar. The last word we have is the something you want to buy, which in our case is roupas. 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 So altogether we have onde posso comprar roupas. Literally, this means where can I buy clothes? Now, to ask for a different item, we can just replace the word roupas with a new term. Let's try açaí smoothie, which in Portuguese is açaí na tigela. So our phrase becomes onde posso comprar açaí na tigela. The only thing that changes is the thing you're looking for. In this case, the açaí na tigela. Let's take a look at the components. First we have açaí, which is the native name for this fruit. Most Americans have heard of it, and I highly suggest eating it while in Brazil because it's one of my favorite foods. So let's break this down. A-sa-í. And remember that the stress goes on the E. And one time fast. Açaí. Next we have na, which means in, the. Na. Na. And last we have tigela, which means bowl. Tigela. 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 And altogether we have açaí na tigela. Literally, this means açaí in the bowl or açaí smoothie. This phrase will come in handy before leaving the hotel, talking with taxi drivers, or other people trying to help you locate a desired item. Now that you're able to ask, you're going to get an answer. As we're running out of time for today, we're going to have to cover that in a later lesson. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
Where can I buy clothes? Onde posso comprar roupas? Onde posso comprar roupas? Onde posso comprar roupas?
Lesson 25.
In today's lesson, we'll introduce you to a phrase that will provide you with the tools to learn from the people around you. Now, a dictionary is a great idea, but don't forget that you can use Portuguese to learn in a more fun and interactive way. For today's lesson, we're going to need a word, as we're going to cover how do you say something in Portuguese. For today's lesson, let's use shoe for that something. In Portuguese, how do you say shoe in Portuguese is como se diz shoe em português? Como se diz shoe em português? Let's break it down by syllable. Como se diz shoe em português? Now let's hear it once again. Como se diz shoe in português? The first word, como, means how. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Como and como. This is followed by se diz, which in Portuguese is say. Se diz. Se diz. And se diz. These are actually two words, but it's better to learn them together. So to recap here, we have como se diz. Literally, this means how do you say? Then you insert your something, which in our case is shoe. The second half of our phrase starts with ang. 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 This word means in. The last word we have is português. This is how you say Portuguese in Portuguese. Português. 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 So altogether we have como se diz shoe in Português? Literally this means, how do you say shoe in Portuguese? Now this is useful if the person you're talking to actually knows English. But what if no one else speaks English? You can use the next expression without any English. How do you say this in Portuguese? In Portuguese, this is como se diz isto em português? Let's break it down by syllable. Como se diz isto em português? Now let's hear it once again. Como se diz isto em português? These two phrases are almost identical. You can just change the shoe for the word this. The first phrase is used when you are asking someone who speaks English. The second phrase is for when you are feeling courageous, or there are no English speakers around. The isto depends on context and usually refers to something you're pointing at or holding. So altogether we have como se diz isto em português? Literally this means, how do you say this in Portuguese? To ask how to say, how do you say that in Portuguese, simply substitute the Portuguese word isso for isto. This is one of the most frequently used phrases when you are learning a new language. Okay, to close out today's lesson, we'd like for you to practice what you've just learned. I'll provide you with the English equivalent of the phrase, and you're responsible for saying it aloud. You'll have a few seconds before I give you the answer, so boa sorte.
How do you say shoe in Portuguese? Como se diz shoe em português? Como se diz shoe em português? Como se diz shoe em português? How do you say this in Portuguese? Como se diz isto em português? Como se diz isto em português? Como se diz isto em português?
Lesson 26.
Today's lesson will introduce you to a phrase that will provide you with the tools to learn from the people around you. You can use Portuguese to learn in a more fun and interactive way, and today we're going to cover a way for you to hold on to the information you get. In Portuguese, please, could you write that down, is por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Here it is once again. Por favor, você poderia escrever isto? First four words are our base request phrase that we learned in Lesson 9 on asking people to speak slower. Let's review this base phrase. Por favor, você poderia. Por favor, você poderia. This means, please, could you? The first new word is escrever, which means to write. Escrever. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Escrever and escrever. This is followed by isto, which we have previously covered and means this. So altogether we have por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Literally, this means, please, could you write this down? Once you have it written down, in Portuguese, please, could you pronounce this? Is por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? Por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? Now here it is once again. Por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? Notice again our request phrase. And the first new word here is pronunciar, which means pronounce in English. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Pronunciar. Pronunciar. As you can see, there is a formula to these kinds of phrases. First, the request phrase, por favor, você poderia, then whatever you want them to do. In this case, pronounce this, or pronunciar isto. Or in our last example, write this, or escrever isto. So altogether we have, por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? And literally this means, please could you pronounce this? Asking people to write down a phrase for you is a great idea because often you won't understand what the person is trying to say, and this is also a great way to learn new words. Maybe their accent is really strong, or maybe you just can't understand what they're saying. Seeing the word written down can often give you a clue as to the meaning because many Portuguese words are written similarly to English words, just the pronunciation is different.
Please, could you write this down? Por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Por favor, você poderia escrever isto? Please, could you pronounce this? Por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? Por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto? Por favor, você poderia pronunciar isto?
Lesson 27.
In this lesson, we'll introduce you to another useful phrase for locating new places. Today's phrase is there a place around here? Let's use a bank as our destination. Now in Brazil, the word for bank is banco, and it's a homonym with the word for bench, also banco. So when you need a bank, usually you use the name of said bank. So let's use the Bradesco Bank. Let's break it down by syllable. Bradesco. Now let's hear it once again. Bradesco. In Portuguese, is there a Bradesco around here? Is tem Bradesco por aqui? Let's break it down by syllable. Tem Bradesco por aqui. And one time fast. Tem Bradesco por aqui? The first word, tem, means there is. Let's hear this word one more time. Tem. Next we have our location or the name of our bank. Bradesco. 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 So to recap here we have tem Bradesco. Literally, this means there is a Bradesco, but if you raise your voice at the end, it means is there a Bradesco? Let's take a look at the next word, por. This word has several meanings, but in this situation it means around. Por. Por. The last word we have is aqui, which means here. Aqui. 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 So altogether we have tem Bradesco por aqui. Literally this means, is there a Bradesco around here? Now to ask for a different place, we can just replace the word Bradesco with any other word and the phrase works just fine. Let's try post office, which in Portuguese is correios. We don't have the synonym problem here, so the generic term correios is fine. So the new phrase is tem correios por aqui. Tem correios por aqui. Tem correios por aqui. The only thing that changes is the thing you're looking for. In this case, it's correios. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Correios. Correios. Brazil has many different kinds of banks. National banks, state banks, federal banks, etc. For international travelers, Bradesco is usually the best because they have buildings and ATMs everywhere, and they either don't charge you to withdraw money or charge very little. The next best one is the HSBC Bank, which is a huge international bank and very hospitable to foreigners, but HSBC is kind of hard to find. It's probably the easiest bank to use because they often have English-speaking employees, but there just aren't that many branches in Brazil. Bradesco has ATMs at almost every mall, outlet store, flea market, post office, or hair salon you'll find. Another bank, Banco 24 Horas, is pretty common, but they charge very high withdrawal fees. The last bank that has lots of ATMs is Banco do Brasil. They always have bright yellow signs with blue lettering, so you can't miss them, but in my experience, you're kind of hit and miss here. I've had some of my smoothest and also some of my most irritating experiences trying to get money out of a Banco do Brasil ATM. So to recap, Bradesco is the best because of availability and services provided. Next we have HSBC, for superior services, but kind of hard to find. Then Banco do Brasil, for ease of finding them, but low probability of you actually getting any money out of them. And last, Banco 24 Horas, because they charge so much.
Is there a Bradesco around here? Tem Bradesco por aqui? Tem Bradesco por aqui. Tem Bradesco por aqui? Is there a post office around here? Tem correios por aqui? Tem correios por aqui. Tem correios por aqui?
Lesson 28.
In today's lesson, we'll introduce you to directions that will help you find the place you're looking for. Previously, we introduced, is there a Bradesco near here? And where is there a something? But while you can now ask, we haven't addressed understanding the answer. Today we're going to work on understanding what is said. So today we'll go over basic directions. First we have go straight. In Portuguese, go straight is vai reto. Vai reto. Let's break it down by syllable. Vai reto. Now let's hear it once again. Vai reto. The first word, vai, means go. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Vai and vai. This is followed by reto, which in Portuguese is straight. Reto. 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 So altogether we have vai reto. Literally this means go straight. Now we're going to work on turning. Let's try turn right. In Portuguese, turn right is vira à direita. Vira à direita. The first word, vira, means turn. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Vira. Vira. This is followed by a, which in Portuguese is to the. Ah. Ah. The last word is direita, which means right. Direita. 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 So altogether we have vira à direita, which literally means turn to the right. Now turn left. In Portuguese, turn left is the same phrase, just substitute the word esquerda for the word direita. Esquerda. 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 Esquerda means left. So altogether we have vira à esquerda, which literally means turn to the left. So turn right? Okay, got that. Turn left? Okay, got that too. But turn right where? How about at the light? At the light in Portuguese is no sinal. No sinal. No sinal. No sinal. No sinal is actually two words, but they go together. So altogether we have vira à direita no sinal. Vira à direita no sinal. Vira à direita no sinal. Another place where you could turn is at the end of the block. At the end of the block is no final da quadra. No final da quadra. No final da quadra. First we have no final, which means at the end. No final. No final. Next we have da, which means of the. Da. Da. Last we have quadra, which means block. So quadra. 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 Altogether you have no final da quadra, which means at the end of the block. Then you attach it to our first phrase and you get vira à direita no final da quadra. Vira à direita no final da quadra. Vira à direita no final da quadra. In Portuguese, it's on the right is está no lado direito. Está no lado direito. Let's break it down by syllable. Está no lado direito. And one time fast. Está no lado direito. The first word, está, means is. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Está and está. This is followed by no, which in English is on the. No, no. Next we have lado, which means side. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Lado. Lado. So to recap here, we have está no lado. Literally this means is on the side. Let's take a look at the next word, direito, which means right. Direito. 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 So altogether we have está no lado direito. Literally this means it's on the right side. The it is inferred. In Portuguese, it's on the left is está no lado esquerdo. Está no lado esquerdo. Let's break it down by syllable. Está no lado esquerdo. And one time fast. Está no lado esquerdo. The first word, está, means is. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Está and está. This is followed by no, which in English is on the. No. No. Next we have lado, which means side. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. La-do and lado. So to recap here we have está no lado. Literally this means is on the side. Let's take a look at the next word, esquerdo, which means right. Esquerdo. 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 So altogether we have está no lado esquerdo. Literally, this means it's on the left side. The it is still inferred. Getting lost in a new place isn't fun, so you should ask for directions. The problem is that many people in Brazil aren't used to giving directions, so they can be quite confusing and even faulty. When you ask someone for directions, you should always check if that information is correct by asking at least one more person. My own experiences of getting directions when I lived in Brazil were often humorous. I lived in 3 different regions of Brazil and 8 different cities, and often walked or rode the bus system alone. Asking directions would not always solve my problems, so one thing I learned to do was carry a map of every city, broken down by neighborhood. These maps are available in every phone book and always available in hotels. If you have a smartphone, you could probably take a picture of the map to keep it with you that way.
Go straight. Vai reto. Vai reto. Vai reto. Turn right. Vira à direita. Vira à direita. Vira à direita. Turn left. Vira à esquerda. Vira à esquerda. Vira à esquerda. At the light. No sinal. No sinal. No sinal. At the end of the block. No final da quadra. No final da quadra. No final da quadra. It's on the right. Está no lado direito. Está no lado direito. Está no lado direito. It's on the left. Está no lado esquerdo. Está no lado esquerdo. Está no lado esquerdo.
Lesson 29.
In this lesson, we'll introduce a phrase that is certain to come in handy for capturing your memories on film. Brazil is full of beautiful scenery, and there are times when you'll want to be in the picture or have everyone in your party in the picture. Therefore, there are times when the question, "Could you take our picture?" will be invaluable. In Portuguese, please, could you take our picture is por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Now let's hear it once again. Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? The first 4 words are our fixed request phrase, so we won't look at them individually here, but let's break this phrase down and then hear it once again. Por favor, você poderia. Por favor, você poderia. The first new word we have is tirar, which means to take. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Tirar and tirar. This is followed by uma, which we have covered in our lesson on numbers, and it means one. Uma. Next we have foto, which means picture in English. Foto. So to recap the new stuff, we have tirar uma foto, which means take a picture. Tirar uma foto. Tirar uma foto. The last 2 words are de nós. Let's take a look at the first word, de, which in English means of. De. Last we have nós, which means us or we. nós, nós. So altogether we have tirar uma foto de nós. Literally this means take a picture of us. Then you add our fixed request phrase and we get por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? When traveling alone, please could you take my picture? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de mim? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de mim? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de mim? As you can see, the only thing that changes is the last word, mim. Let's listen to this slowly. Mim. And one time fast. Mim. Literally this means me. In English, before someone takes a picture, the person taking the picture may say, 1, 2, 3, cheese. In Portuguese, before a picture is taken, the person taking the picture will do the same thing, just in Portuguese. They say, 1, 2, 3, X. 1, 2, 3, X. And one time fast. 1, 2, 3, X. The first three words are the numbers 1, 2, and 3, which we covered in a previous lesson. Let's hear these slowly and then at normal speed. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The last word, X, is actually the English word cheese spoken with a Brazilian accent. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. X, X. So altogether we have 1, 2, 3, X. Literally this means 1, 2, 3, cheese. So if you're taking the picture, you'll say this. And if you're having your picture taken, you'll hear this. When you're visiting a new state or country, everything is new, and you don't want to miss anything. There's something grabbing at your attention that you don't want to forget. The solution? Take pictures. I will warn you, though, that the typical Brazilian isn't very good at taking pictures. The reality is that while they can afford this new gear, few have ever been taught how to take a picture. I can't count how many blurred, overexposed, missed shot, and just bad pictures I've had from my years in Brazil. I don't want to scare you because I do have some very good pictures from my years in Brazil, but you do need to be aware that they may not come out the way you want them to.
Please, could you take our picture? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Please, could you take my picture? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de mim? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de mim? Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de mim?
Lesson 30.
In this lesson, we'll introduce a question related to could you take our picture, which in Portuguese is por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? Let's break it down by syllable. Por favor, você poderia tirar uma foto de nós? There are cases when you may want to take a picture of someone or with someone, but before doing so, you'd like to ask permission. In Portuguese, may I take your picture is posso tirar uma foto sua? Posso tirar uma foto sua? Let's break it down by syllable. Posso tirar uma foto sua? Now let's hear it once again. Posso tirar uma foto sua? The first word, posso, means I can. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Po-su and posso. This is followed by tirar, which means to take. Tirar, tirar. Next we have uma, which means one. Uma, uma. So to recap here, we have posso tirar uma. Literally this means, can I take a? The next word, foto, means picture. Foto, foto, foto. The last word is sua, which means your. Sua, sua, sua. So altogether we have posso tirar uma foto sua? Literally this means, can I take your picture? There may also be times when you want to take a picture with someone. In this case, you could ask by saying, may I take a picture with you? Posso tirar uma foto contigo? Posso tirar uma foto contigo? Let's break it down by syllable. Posso tirar uma foto contigo? Now here it is once again. Posso tirar uma foto contigo? The first four words are the same as the previous phrase. Posso tirar uma foto. Only the last word changes. Contigo. Let's break down this word and hear it one more time. Contigo. Contigo. Contigo means with you. So altogether we have Posso tirar uma foto contigo? Literally this means, may I take a picture with you? And finally, for asking permission to take a picture, you can say Posso tirar uma foto aqui? Which in English is, may I take a picture here? Posso tirar uma foto aqui? Let's break it down by syllable. Posso tirar uma foto aqui? Now let's hear it again. Posso tirar uma foto aqui? As you can see, the entire phrase is exactly the same except for the last word, aqui. We've already covered aqui in a previous lesson, but let's break it down and hear it one more time just for good measure. Aqui, aqui. So altogether we have Posso tirar uma foto aqui? Literally this means, can I take a picture here? The Brazilian people really like it when a foreigner wants to take their picture with them. They always say, sim, é claro, which means, yes, of course. Some people might laugh because they're not used to getting their picture taken. When you ask, posso tirar uma foto sua? Often they will be embarrassed, but a kind, smiling face from you. And soon they'll be ready and you can take as many pictures as you want. The Brazilian people love to see smiles on people's faces, so with a simple, honest smile, you can captivate many.
May I take a picture? Posso tirar uma foto sua? Posso tirar uma foto sua? Posso tirar uma foto sua? May I take a picture with you? Posso tirar uma foto contigo? Posso tirar uma foto contigo? Posso tirar uma foto contigo? May I take a picture here? Posso tirar uma foto aqui? Posso tirar uma foto aqui? Posso tirar uma foto aqui?